We have a special guest here with us. He is an Edinboro University professor in the Department of English and Liberal Studies. He is here today to promote his recently published book, Infinite Drift. According to the press release, Infinite Drift tells the story of cosmologist Dr. Eggers Mortensen, who discovers how to turn the multi-universe into one giant cloud-like computer processor. To give us a little more in-depth look at Infinite Drift, I would like to now welcome the author, Dr. Jeffrey Bartone. How are you doing today, Professor?
I'm doing great.
That's good. So let's go a little bit more in depth, and could you give a more elaborate synopsis of Infinite Drift?
Absolutely. This book is pretty much a rags to riches tale, which everybody loves, because we often, especially in America, hold that dream. Well, when the book opens, Dr. Eggers Mortensen basically kind of gives up, I don't say gives up on life, but he focuses all of his life on developing his idea of infinite drift. And it's actually a apocalyptic idea, the idea that eventually the whole universe is going to become deconstructed. And infinite drift means that things can move without respect to time, so that you just have no way of predicting where things are going to be. And so he goes up there and he works out his theory, and it turns out the opposite happens, that instead of it being predictive of the end of the universe, it ends up being a way for him to tap into the multiverse, remove time as a variable, and just use the whole thing as a huge computer, which means if you can envision something or imagine it, you can do it. So he returns to New York, starts this notorious corporation called X Plus Corporation, and it becomes the biggest corporation on the earth, on the planet, and he becomes the wealthiest individual. And of course, then he just, what would any of us do?
Don't want to give too much away.
No, but yeah. Would anybody be mature enough, maybe at my age, but, would anybody be mature enough to have all that power and wealth and not start to get a little wonky?
Yeah, just a bit. And every book has a theme. What would you say the theme of this book would be?
Well, basically, there are a number of themes. You want to have a dominant theme, but you also want to have a lot of themes working together. And one of the themes that this book plays with, and I love, in all my work, I love to just play with themes. I don't like to preach, I don't like to instruct. I just like to take a theme and really just work it over. And one of the themes really relates to what's happening in our world today, which is what price will we pay for success? And again, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say that when he does begin to do experiments on tapping into the multiverse as a computer processor, he gets some anomalies and finds out that it may not be totally safe. And so eventually he has to make it. Every book has a conflict or a moral ethical decision that the main character has to make. So he's got to decide, should I go forward with this, with the potential of doing to the universe what we're already doing to our planet,
Yeah.
And what price will we pay for progress? Because the progress here is phenomenal. We can have an unlimited supply of clean energy. We can just, within a span of a decade, eliminate all the major diseases, pancreatic cancer, AIDS, everything, because we can run experiments that would take 1 million years to do on Earth. We can send it out there, design it, have it carried on, have multiple replications of it, and have it come back in a nanosecond completed.
Wow.
But what's the price?
What's the price for it, exactly? And we talked earlier, and you mentioned you had a difficult time with the publishing process and the publishing agencies. What would you say is the hardest part of publishing a book?
I think the hardest part really is finding a good fit. And everybody dreams of getting that big book contract. And you always have to stretch beyond maybe where you should be. No writer should ever be satisfied. No artist should ever be satisfied. If you win the Pulitzer Prize, go for the Nobel. You win the Nobel, try to be the greatest writer of all time. And for me, the worst part was that I actually And what they do then is they try to put together this huge package. It's going to be published in Canada. It's going to be published in Great Britain. It's going to be published in continental Europe. It's going to be translated. It's going to be potentially made into a movie. They put all that together before they'll sign a contract with the writer. But odds of success once you sign that initial contract are really good. So
Yeah.
I got all excited, and in some ways I wish it hadn't happened because I got all excited and I thought, I'm already thinking of all the charities I'm going to give money to, my next boat, maybe I'll take a semester off, and because the average advance at this agency was like $280,000. So I'm thinking, oh man, I made the big time, this will be great. And then like on day 89, it was a 90-day contract, and on day 89 the woman called and said, I got bad news, the deal fell through.
Oh gosh.
And I said, you got to be kidding me. She said, I feel really bad about this. I love the book. And she said something I'll never forget. She said, I wish I were in a position where I could single-handedly publish this book. But the publishing world just doesn't work that way anymore. Everybody's in a panic because it's changing.
Yeah.
Just like the music industry or a lot of other industries, it's just changing, and no one quite knows what the future is going to be like. So I went back to the drawing board, and it took me 2 years then to get it published, to find somebody who would take it. After that.
So what company did eventually take it?
They're called Unsolicited Press, and they're a very small publishing company. They're actually in California. Couldn't get any of the New York presses to take it. They do primarily poetry, and I think they're trying to branch out into fiction. And I went with them. I had other small presses interested, but I went with them because they seem willing to make this their marquee book.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a cliche, but I'd rather be a big fish in a small pond, than just be another writer on someone's list.
Mm-hmm. And with all these hardships, you got to think of some of the other advice that you'd give to future authors. And I mentioned before, or you had that you have a creative writing class. So what would you say would be some advice that you would give to them about writing their own book?
Well, first of all, put everything into the writing of the book. Writing is the one thing I do, the only thing in my life I can honestly say I do without any compromise. Doesn't mean I'm inflexible. If someone says, do this to your character, and I look at it and I say, that's closer to my vision, thank you, I'll make the change. But if someone says, put in a female character who does this because that's what readers want or that's what publishers want, I won't do it. So I make no compromise. I just write the book I want to write. And that's what I would tell people. Because ultimately, when a book comes out, you want to be able to stand behind it and be proud of it. And that might be the only thing you get out of it, but it's huge. To have a novel published and say, this is the best I can do right now, and I'm damn proud of this.
Yeah.
And I can say that about this book,
Regardless
of the hardships I went through and the disappointments.
This is the book that you wanted, and you stuck with it, and you're proud of it, and that's all that matters.
And it's funny. I mean, anybody who's watching this, if you buy this book and you read it and you don't laugh, I will personally refund your money. Seriously, that's not a joke. It's legally binding because I'm saying it on the air. All right, everybody who's read this book has laughed, and then it does get serious at the end, But
you gotta have some sort of humor in every book.
You have to. You have to have humor because you have to have humor in life. You'll go through hardships in your life too, and you have to.
You have to laugh.
And you've got to. If you're going to write, it's not easy to write a novel. It's not easy to be a writer. So you've got to find the joy in it. You really have to love it. And like anything you love, it's going to have negative aspects and positive aspects, but when they're taken together, there has to be joy there. And if there isn't, don't do it. There are so many other things you can do. You can, buy and sell cars and make a lot more money than you will writing books.
Well, I'd like to thank Dr. Bartone for his time. And if you would like a copy of Infinite Drift, you can order one at Amazon.com. Or if you would like a signed copy of the book, Dr. Bartone has them in his office in Centennial Hall on the Edinboro University campus. Thank you again, Dr. Bartone, and the best of luck to you in your new book.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.